Good afternoon. The theme of our lesson, Introduction in Angiology, Patterns of Distribution of the Arteries, Collateral Circulation, and Anastomosis. The cardiovascular system consists of the heart and blood vessels. Their functions are: first, transport function; second, exchange between the blood and tissues; third, integrative function; fourth, immune and or protective function. These are the functions of the cardiovascular system. In first, we will discuss about the heart. The heart, it is hollow muscular organ which lies inside the thoracic cavity between the lungs. Functions of the heart. The heart pumps the blood into the arterial system and regulates the venous blood flow. The heart lies inside the thoracic cavity and pumps the blood into the arterial system and regulates venous blood flow. Pumps the blood into the arterial system by biggest artery, aorta. Or the heart suctions the blood from the venous system. But there are large veins, inferior vena cava, inferior vena cava. These veins collect the venous blood from all human body and they flow into the right atrium, superior vena cava from the upper side, and inferior vena cava. Structure of the heart. The heart have four chambers. There are right atrium, right ventricle, the left atrium, and left ventricle. We can see it is frontal section of the heart. We can see the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle. In between the atriums and ventricles, we can see the septs. Interatrial septum is between the right atrium and left atrium. Interventricular septum, isolates the right ventricle from the right atriums. Between the right atrium and right ventricles, we can see the right atrioventricular orifice. Between left atrium and left ventricle, we can see the left atrioventricular orifice. These orifices regulate by valves of the heart. The right atrioventricular valve, or tricuspid valve, regulates opening of right atrioventricular opening. Left atrioventricular valve, или bicuspid valve, regulates the left atrioventricular orifice. From the right ventricle originates pulmonary trunk. The opening of the pulmonary trunk regulates by pulmonary semilunar valve. From the left ventricle originates aorta. The opening of the aorta regulates by aortic semilunar valves. There are right and left atrioventricular valves and pulmonary semilunar and aortic semilunar valves. What we can see on this picture. This is right ventricle. This is pulmonary trunk. What semilunar valves of the pulmonary trunk. Here we can see the tricuspid valve. The layers of the heart wall. There are 3 layers: inner endocardium, middle myocardium, and outer epicardium. The structure of the wall of the heart consists of 3 layers: endocardium, myocardium, and epicardium. There are, 3 types of the muscles: at the skeletal, striated, smooth muscles, and cardiac muscles. The main function characteristic of the cardiac muscles is just autonomic contraction. The heart has conducting system of the heart. It's presented by 2 nodes: sinoatrial nodes, atrioventricular node, atrioventricular fascicle or his bundle. This bundle have right and left bundles or peduncles of the atrioventricular fascicles, conductive muscular fibers, filaments of the Purkinje fibers. Here we can see the sinoatrial node, between opening of the superior vena cava and right auricle. Atrioventricular node is on the inferior 1/3 of the interatrial septum. His bundle lies inside the intermuscular septum and subdivides into the right peduncle and left peduncle, the bundles. They continue into the Purkinje fibers. These are elements of the conductive system of the heart, which regulates the autonomic contraction of the heart. Veins of the heart. There are 3 types of the veins. The veins of the coronary sinus. The coronary sinus flow the Greek cardiac vein, middle cardiac vein, small cardiac vein, posterior vein of the left ventricle, oblique vein of the left atrium. These 5 veins flows into the coronary sinus. Coronary sinus is just biggest vein of the heart, which flows individually into the right atrium. The second group, it is anterior cardiac veins and smallest cardiac veins. Anterior cardiac veins lies on anterior surface of the right atrium. Smallest vein inside the myocardium of the atrium and right atrium and right ventricle. Outer layer of the heart, it is epicardium. Epicardium, it is visceral layer of the pericardium. The heart protects by paracardiac vessa or pericardium. Pericardium consists of 2 layers: fibrous pericardium, it is outer layer, presented by dense connective tissue. It continues into the adventitia of the vessels. Inner serous pericardium. Serous pericardium, as all serous membranes consist of visceral layer, epicardium, and parietal layer. Visceral layer covers the outer surface of the heart, and at the level of the veins continues into the parietal. Parietal lies on the inner surface of the fibrous pericardium, and between the visceral and parietal layers of the serous pericardium form a closed pericardial cavity with pericardial fluid. The heart regulates the blood into the systematic and pulmonary circulation. On the human body, there are systematic and pulmonary circulations. The pulmonary circulation begins from the right ventricle of the heart from pulmonary trunk and ends in the left atrium with 4 pulmonary veins. Pulmonary circulation originates from the right ventricle and ends inside the left atrium. This circulation called pulmonary circulation. Или lesser circular ring. The value of the pulmonary circulation, saturation of the blood with oxygen and the release of the carbon dioxide in the acini of the lungs. It is function of the pulmonary circulation. From the right ventricle originates pulmonary trunk. It subdivides into the right and left pulmonary arteries. They enter into the hilum of the lungs, and inside the acini of the lungs, gas extends inside the acini of the lungs. And from each lungs exit 2 pulmonary veins with oxygenating blood, and they flows into the left atrium. Systematic blood circulation begins with the aorta in the left ventricle and ends with the superior and inferior vena cava in the right atrium of the heart. This is great circulation ring, all called systematic blood circulation, originates inside the left ventricle and ends inside the right atrium. The value of the systematic circulation, it provides gas exchange into the tissues of the organs. It is function of the systematic circulation. On this picture we can see the pulmonary and systematic circulation. This is the heart. The pulmonary circulation originates from the right ventricle by pulmonary trunk. Pulmonary trunk subdivides into the left and right pulmonary arteries. They direct into the lungs. Inside the lungs, gas exchange with the acini of the lungs, and oxygenating blood through 4 pulmonary veins directs into the left atriums. Left atriums contract and direct the oxygenating blood into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle originates the biggest vessel of the human body. It is aorta. Aorta subdivides into the arteries inside the tissues of the organs through the microcirculatory beds. Gas exchange inside the organs, and venous blood flows into the right atrium by superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. This is pulmonary circulation. This is systematic circulation of the blood. The blood vessels are classified into the three groups: arteries, microcirculatory beds, and veins. There are three types of the blood vessels: arteries, microcirculatory beds, and veins. What are the arteries? Arteries, blood vessels that carry arterial blood from the heart into the organs. They direct the arterial blood from the heart to the organs and called arteries. The structure of the artery wall is formed by three membranes. Inner endothelium, middle muscular, and outer adventitia. There are three membranes of the artery: endothelium, muscular layer, and adventitia. Here on this picture we can see the structure of the wall of the arteries. Inner layer at endothelium, what pink color, then muscular layer, and what yellow, this is adventitia. The structure of the wall of the artery. This is transverse section of the artery. We can see the endothelium, muscular layer, middle, and adventitia. There are three types of the arteries for the structure of the muscular membrane. First, elastic arteries. Inside the elastic arteries, most elastic fibers. For example of the elastic arteries: aorta, pulmonary trunk. Second type, muscular arteries. Inside the muscular arteries, most muscular fibers. There are example of them maybe arteries of the upper and lower limbs, organs. And third types of the arteries, mixed arteries, 50 to 50% of the elastic fibers and 50% of the muscular fibers. Examples: carotid, subclavian arteries. There are three types of the arteries for the structure of the muscular layer: elastic, muscular, and mixed. Arteries are divided into the four groups according their topographic position: precardiac, main or mediastinal arteries, extraorganic, and intraorganic. There are four groups of the arteries correspond for their topographic position. Precardiac, they are near the base of the heart. Main, mediastinal, along the trunk, along the upper and lower limb. Extraorganic, near the organs. Intraorganic, inside the parenchyma or walls of the tubular or hollow muscular organs. What we can see the heart, on the base of the heart we can see the precardiac vessels, arteries. It is aorta. This is pulmonary trunk. The main arteries are situated along the neural tube and nerves. Then we will discuss about the patterns of the distribution of the arteries. The main arteries are situated along the neural tube and nerves. For example, aorta directs along the spinal cord. The arteries run parallel to the nerves in composition of the neurovascular bundles. On this picture, we can see the neurovascular bundle of the upper extremity. This is brachium. Inside the brachium, we can see the neurovascular bundle of the brachium. It's presented by brachial artery, 2 brachial veins, lymphatic vessels, ulnar and median nerves. On the forearm, we can see the ulnar artery and radial artery. They lies inside the neurovascular bundles too. Along the ulnar artery, we can see the 2 ulnar veins and lymphatic vessels and ulnar nerve. Radial artery lies inside the neurovascular bundle with 2 radial veins, lymphatic vessels, and radial nerve. This is neurovascular bundle. The main arteries are arranged in accordance with the skeleton. This is upper extremity. We can see the upper extremity. This is humerus. Humerus connect with the ulna and radius. Along the humerus, direct the 1 brachial artery, along the ulnar artery, and along the radius, radial artery. The arteries of the trunk of the body have segmentary structure. For example, intercostal arteries. They lie along the segments of the trunk, parallel to each other. The arteries of the cavities are divided into the visceral and parietal ones. For example, this is thoracic cavity. This is thoracic aorta. Thoracic aorta give parietal branches which blood supply the walls of the posterior thoracic wall and diaphragm. Parietal branches, they are posterior intercostal arteries and superior diaphragmatic arteries. And this aorta blood supply the nearing organs of the thoracic cavity and give the visceral branches. For example, esophageal branches, bronchial and pulmonary branches, pericardic branches. For example, this is abdominal cavity. Abdominal cavity have visceral branches, renal arteries to blood supply of the kidneys. The most number of the arteries are arranged according to the principle of bilateral symmetry. We have right and left common carotid arteries, left and right subclavian arteries, right and left and right renal arteries, for example. The neurovascular bundle of the limbs lie on the flexion surface of the joints. We can see the elbow joints. This is anterior surface of the elbow joints, as neurovascular bundle lies on the flexion surface. When we flex the elbow joints, we help to vessel to the blood direction of the inside the vessels. The arteries follow the shortest distance to the organs, exception ovaric artery for the female, testicular arteries of the male. Every artery gives branches to the nearing organ. For example, on this picture we see the heart. From the heart, left ventricle originates aorta. The beginning part of the aorta called bulbous aortic bulb. From the aortic bulb originates very important arteries, right coronary artery and left coronary arteries, which blood supply the heart. Arteries follow the shortest distance, exception ovaric and testicular artery. The number and caliber of the arteries is determined not only by the size but also the function of the organs. For example, thyroid glands, just very important glands. Glands blood supply very good. Its blood supplies by superior thyroid and inferior thyroid arteries. The renal artery, kidney blood supply. The kidney blood supplies by only one renal artery, no diameter. It is largest. It's just largest. The arteries passes nearby the mobile organs. Mobile organs form a lot of anastomosis. For example, elbow joint, it is movable. We can flexion and extension, and around the joints formate the anastomosis by many arteries. These elbow joints blood supply by blood supplies from four collateral and four recurrent arteries. For example, this is a rectum. Rectum we subdivide into the three parts. Superior 1/3 blood supply superior rectal artery, middle 1/3 blood supply by right and left middle rectal arteries, inferior 1/3 blood supplies by inferior left and right rectal arteries. These five arteries anastomosis inside the walls of the rectum. The extraorganic arteries enter into the organs on concave, medial or internal surface, passing the source of nutrition through the hilum of the organ. This is we can see the lungs. It is parenchymatic organ and kidney. The parenchymatic organs have the hilum on the medial surface, on the concave medial border. These arteries direct into the organs through the hilum of the organs. At the extraorganic arteries. Various patterns in the branches of the interorganic arteries we can see on this picture. For example, the kidney. We can see the liver. To the liver, arteries direct from the peripheral part to the central part. For example, the kidneys. To the kidney directs one artery, subdivided into the segmental artery, correspond to the segmental structure of the kidney. They give many branches inside the parenchyma. For example, this is blood supplying of the body of the tubular bone. The tubular bone, body of the tubular bone has nutrients opening. One nutrients artery directly into the nutrients opening, into the nutrients canal, and subdivide into the ascending branches and descending branches. This is blood supply of the ureters or maybe esophagus. On the lateral side we can see the one artery. This artery gives many parallel branches which around the organ. This is example of the blood supply of the spinal cord. On the outer surface we can see the main arteries. Between them transverse anastomosis. These arteries direct from the peripheral part to the central canal. Collateral circulation is an important functional adaptation of the organism. It is of important practical significance. Later we will discuss about the collateral circulation of the blood vessels. It is important functional adaptation of the organism and it can formate by during the disease. Collateral circulation occurs in physiological conditions and may take place under the pathological condition too. It is functionally collateral circulation. We have collateral circulation of the along the vessels during the disease in physiological condition, and the persons who have disease have under the pathological condition. There are two kinds of vessels providing collateral circulation. First, the peripheral, perivascular and perineural vessels. Second, the anastomosis between the vessels. There are two kinds of vessels which providing the collateral circulation: perivascular and perineural vessels, the anastomosis between the vessels. What we can see the structure of the artery on the adventitia. We can see the vessels of the vessels, which nutrients the blood vessel. Vasa vasorum, internal. There are internal vasa vasorum and maybe external vasa vasorum. That's internal from this artery, and external from the another nearing artery. Venous vasa vasora. From the veins, there are the tributaries which collect the venous blood from the walls of the arteria, from the arteria. The anastomosis is the connection of two vessels through a third vessel. Anastomosis is connection between two vessels by third vessel. According to the vessels to be joined, the anastomosis are divided into the three groups: interarterial anastomosis, intervenous anastomosis, in arteriolar venular anastomosis. Venular anastomosis. There are three groups of anastomosis: interarterial, intervenous, arteriolar venular anastomosis. Interarterial anastomosis are between branches of the arteries. Arteries give the branches. Between the branches of these arteries may be interarterial anastomosis. There are two groups of interarterial anastomosis. First, intrasystemic, between the branches of the one artery, intersystemic, between branches of the different arteries. Interarterial anastomosis, we have two types of anastomosis: intrasystemic, between the branches of the one artery, intersystemic, between the branches of the different arteries. Here we can see this anastomosis on this picture. This is hip bone, this is femur, this is lower extremity. Here, the thigh, blood supply by femoral artery. Femoral artery gave the deep artery of the thigh. It's near the neck of the femoral bone. Give the lateral circumflex femoral and medial circumflex femoral arteries. In these branches of these arteries, anastomosis near the neck This is intrasystemic anastomosis. Intrasystemic anastomosis. Here we can see on this picture intersystemic anastomosis too. For example, on the inside the hip joint, we can see anastomosis between the obturator artery from the internal iliac artery and the branches of the deep femoral arteries. Deep femoral arteries. The second type of the anastomosis, intervenous anastomosis. Intervenous anastomosis between tributaries of the veins. About the veins we will discuss next lecture. Intervenous anastomosis between the tributaries of the veins. The artery give the branches, the veins formates from the tributaries. From the tributaries. As small large river formates from the tributaries from the small rivers. Third type, arteriola-venular anastomosis. Arteriola-venular anastomosis are between arterioles and venules of the microcirculatory bed. In function of them, they devise regulation of the blood supply of micro regions of our organism. Arteriovenular anastomosis. That is between arterioles and venules of the microcirculatory bed. This anastomosis regulates the blood supply of the micro regions of our organism. On this picture, we can see the arteriola-venular anastomosis. This is arteriole, because we have discussed later about the microcirculatory bed. This is venule, between them microcirculatory bed. Between them can be arteriola-venular anastomosis. Arteriovenular anastomosis. Inside this oxygenating blood, inside this venules, deoxygenating blood. There are different forms of anastomosis for the shape. First shape, arch-formed anastomosis. Second, network anastomosis. Ring-shape anastomosis. Long anastomosis. For the shape, there are very different forms of anastomosis. Arch, network, ring, and long. Here we can see them on the picture. Arch form anastomosis. We can see on the palmar surface of the hand. We have superficial arterial palmar arch and deep arterial palmar arch. They lie parallel to each other. Superficial palmar arch and deep palmar arch. For example, on the stomach, this is stomach, along the lesser curvature we can see the anastomosis between the left gastric vein and right gastric veins. Along the greater curvature we can see between the left gastroepiploic and right gastroepiploic arteries or veins. This is arch-shaped anastomosis. Network anastomosis. Formates around the joints. Because we have very many movements inside the joints. Here the arteries anastomosis, the branches of the arteries anastomosis to each other and formates network. Arterial network of the, for example, knee joints formed by branches of the 9 arteries. The rectum, we have saw them. Inside the rectum we can see anastomosis between 5 branches of the 5 arteries. For example, intravenous anastomosis of the subcutaneous vein of the upper extremity, between the superficial fascia and skin. Ring-shaped anastomosis. So this is the brain. We can see the ventral surface of the brain. On the ventral surface of the brain, we can see the arterial collateral ring of the brain. For the out, it's called Velizev ring. Here we can see the anastomosis between the internal carotid arteries, branches of the internal carotid artery, and basilar artery from the vertebral arteries. This is intersystematic ring-shaped anastomosis. Here, what, for example, it is heart, from the aortic valve originates right coronary artery, left coronary artery. These arteries anastomosis on the apex of the heart and form the longitudinal ring. Along the coronary sinus, they form anastomosis transverse ring anastomosis. Ring-shaped anastomosis. The microcirculatory bed is represented by 5 links: arterioles, precapillaris, capillaris, postcapillaris, and venules. For example, the aorta subdivides into the smallest artery into the very smallest artery. Last artery continues into the arterioles continues into the precapillaris into the capillaris into the postcapillaris, capillaris into the venules are tributaries of the small veins tributaries of the largest veins. These 5 links of the microcirculatory bed. What we can see these elements of the microcirculatory bed on the this is microcirculatory bed. We can see the arterioles, precapillaris, capillaris, postcapillaris, and venules. But for example, this is like under the microscope, we can see these small vessels, 5 links of the microcirculatory bed. Microscopic picture of the microcirculatory bed. We can see the arteriole, which is small, then precapillaris, capillaris, postcapillaris, and venules. On this simple picture, the microcirculatory bed. This is arteriole, small artery subdivides into the arterioles, precapillaris, capillaris, venules, the small veins, large veins. In between them, we can see the arteriolar venular anastomosis, except the capillaris. Arteriolar venular anastomosis. The vessels of the microcirculatory have a diameter of less than 100 microns. Very small. The vessels of the microvasculature microcirculatory bed have a diameter of less than 100 microns. Structure of the wall of the arterioles. Diameter of the arterioles from 50 till 100 microns. Structure of the wall: inner layer endothelium, middle elastic fibrous layer. Then first 1 or 4 muscular cells and adventitia. This is the structure of the arterioles. Endothelium, elastic fibrous layer, muscular cells and adventitia. Diameter very small, from the 50 till 100 microns. Precapillaries. Structure characteristic of the precapillaries. Precapillaries have the diameter from 14 till 16 microns. They have sphincters that regulate the blood flow into the capillaries. Precapillaries has sphincters that regulate blood flow into the capillaries. Only one direction, from the precapillaries into the capillaries. Structure of the wall of the capillaries. Endothelium of the capillaries consists of one row of the pericytes with pores, and between them reticular fibers. The diameter of them very small, from 3 till 12 microns. Capillaries, wall of the capillaries consists of endothelium of them consists of only one row of the pericytes. In between them we can see the pores. On this picture you can see the structure of the wall of the hemocapillary. This is pericytes. In between them we can see the pores. Characteristic of the post capillaries. Post capillaries. Diameter of the post capillaries from 12 till 30 microns. The pericytes are larger than pericytes of the capillaries. Muscle cells are absent. Those post capillaries have now the muscular cells. Diameter 12-30 microns, and pericytes of them larger than pericytes of capillaries. Muscular cells are absent inside the walls of the post capillaries. Structure of the wall of the venules. Diameter 100 microns. Inner layer endothelium, middle elastic fibrous layer. Это structure of the venules, the last link of the microcirculatory bed. Just 100 microns the diameter, endothelium and elastic fibrous layer. The function of the microcirculatory. The function of the microcirculatory bed, first function, it is trophic. They regulate the nutrients of the microvascular regions. Second function, respiratory, gas exchange. Third function, excretory function. And fourth function, regulatory. Small microcirculatory bed, it provides four functions: trophic, respiratory, excretory, and regulatory. We have the 5 elements of the 5 links of the microcirculatory bed: arterioles, precapillaries, capillaries, post capillaries, and venules. Characteristic of the, we can see the structure of the microcirculatory bed. Значит, вот small artery continues into the arterioles. Precapillaries has the sphincters and direct the blood into the capillaries, only into the capillaries. Then postcapillaries, from the postcapillaries forms the venules, потом small veins. These are the structure of the microcirculatory bed. That's cardiovascular system consists of the heart and vessels. Vessels subdivide into the arteries, microcirculatory bed, and veins. Here we have discussed about the structure of the arteries, about the anastomosis of the arteries, about the collateral circulation, and functional of microcirculatory bed. Thank you for your attention. Next lecture will be about the veins, about the venous system. До свидания. Thank you for your attention.